Okay, hi everybody. I'm going to go through this week's Edmodo, give some response to your questions here. It's interesting here in Colorado. Yesterday, we had a big snowstorm and I got stuck here. I didn't have your textbook, so I couldn't get your anticipation guides for next week ready. But I was able to work on the lesson plans and the videos for the lesson plans for the next couple of weeks. And so you should see um, this week's um, lesson plan and next week's lesson plan you should be able to see by now as well. So, okay. Um, Marisa submitted first. What are some of the key issues of an informal assessment that are not mentioned in this chapter? Well, I think they mentioned plenty of them in the chapter. You just need to be aware of what they do and what they, what's going on. I get informal assessments of you guys with my normal interaction with you. I find out what you're asking questions about. I see your grammar. I see sometimes what language you're speaking with your friends. Um, you guys tell me a lot of things as we interact that are very helpful. So those give you some ideas, but informal assessment is good, but it's never going to be as valuable probably as the formal assessment, which is what you're studying for next time, because the formal assessment you're actually going to keep a record of that will make a difference. Informal is good to give you some context and some feeling for what each individual brings to the class. Okay, what are some examples of closed assessment and how do we create one? Look, when I used to teach EDRD, the reading course 3309, I think teaching reading in the schools, or I'm not sure what they called it. That was several years ago. They always mentioned close activities or close assessments, and that's where you ideally you always start what the reading is going to be. You always have the first full sentence, and then you have maybe the first three words, or well, the sentence, I guess, the first sentence, and then after that, you take out every 6 words, every 7 words, every 4 words. You can change it whichever way you like to, probably, but they had a special way to do it. And I thought, and so I've seen that, read about that, and then they didn't have a word bank. In the ESL one that they have here, they have a word bank, which sounds interesting. And also in the reading one I saw, it was automatic. You counted the words, and you always skipped like the 5th word or the 6th word or something like that, and see that the student could put it in there. And of course, they were expected to miss several of them, and you could tell some of their reading skills by the percent they got correct. And no one was expected to get them all correct, just because it was so hard with the prepositions and with the articles and different other parts of speech and the vocabulary words and so forth. I've also seen teachers create their own close assignments where they strategically took out a word here and there, and they called it a close, but it really is not a close. That's just, fill in the missing word type of thing, and it was usually vocabulary words or keywords or something like that. But the traditional strict close, you're not expected to get them all correct, and you're expected to have quite a few words missing, but it's very systematic. Okay, Francisco, what is a closed method? I think I talked about that. Are informal assessment effective? I think I answered that as well. I think they're okay. They're helpful. I use them. I would use them as a teacher all the time, just attentively watching your students and trying to get to know them, trying to get their families, try to have family visits as soon as possible, try to find out about their interests and so forth, the schooling before, their their reading habits and things like that, what they watch on TV even, is interesting to see. And then, what are some of the other key issues in informal assessments? Okay, there we go. How many times a year can the teacher use the written and oral closed assessments? I don't know if teachers use them all that much. Just look and see, find out from the other teachers if they use them at all. Perhaps they haven't had this training you have. Now, some people, when they get ESL certification, most of them probably have not had this textbook, and by the end of the semester, if I do not ask this question on the final exam, even if I do, you might not remember anything about the close at all. And so probably you're going to find out from it through some of the materials you use, some of the textbooks that are recommended, or maybe some district policies or something like that. You're aware of the close method and what it can do, but unfortunately you won't have chance to probably use it at this time. So I think it would be kind of nice to do every once in a while, maybe once every 6 weeks, or maybe when you're doing assessments of the progress of a child. That could be one. You could actually make an informal close into maybe even a formal one, or maybe it will be formal as well. Okay. Amy, how can we help students in other countries learn the English grammar? No, we're not trying to get them. Well, students from other countries, I'll say, learn the English grammar. Okay. I think that is going to be, you're just going to have to take a little bit of time each day to do that. It's going to be helpful to know something about the structure of their language, especially grammar. But it's always going to be English. I mean, always different than the English is. And so it's always going to be hard. You can learn vocabulary much better than grammar. Grammar is more systematic, and there are always exceptions to the rule, especially in English. Okay. Would you recommend teachers to use closed assessment? You might experiment with it, see, modify it a little bit to your needs. It might, if you can make it into kind of a fun activity for your students, they might enjoy it. In fact, I did this with my students in my reading class. I did it just the way they told you to do it, and it was surprising how poorly so many of my students did. When I administered it the way it was suggested in the English in the reading textbook. So I question its value, but you can go ahead and give it a try. Miriam, should teachers apply SWLOM? I'm not sure exactly what that is. I think that's the acronym is actually different than that. Oh, there it is when applying the SOLOM. When the student is in the new SWLOM. I don't have my textbook with me. I'm sorry. Okay. It's the SOLOM, yeah. When applying the expressive communication rubrics, do this. Now, was the SWOLOM the same as the SOLOM? I hope so. Is new to L2 or wait until the student's more proficient in L2? You can do it at all levels and just see where they are. And of course, you're going to see progress later on, hopefully, as you keep a record from year to year. When applying an express communication rubrics, do the students have to use their L2 or use their L2 and maybe code switch? Now wait a minute. L1. Now remember, in our class, we have 2 Arabic students, 2 Spanish students, 2 Chinese students, and 2 Korean students. Okay. I don't think they don't have the same language patterns. They don't do the code switching because they are not bilingual. They will not be code switching. Code switching assumes a proficiency in both of the languages. and they do not have that proficiency in the languages because they are recent arrivals to the United States. So, um, all you can base what you're doing on is the English, and you need to get that mindset that it's all about the English, and you have a class that is not the typical class that we have here in Laredo. Okay, Crystal, what are some ways to use written and oral closed assessments? Okay, there we go. Um, Oral would be really tough. That would be really tough. Now you can start something and then stop and then have them fill in the word, but generally that's not closed because it's not systematic on every sixth word or every eighth word or something like that. Okay, expressive communication rubrics. How often should expressive communication rubrics? Back to Crystal. How can you determine whether the solemn or expressive rubric would be better to use for your students? See which one you're most comfortable with. You see them, maybe use them both, and see which one is giving you better data or insight into your students. Okay, Lino, used for assessment. We talked about that. What makes closed method different from others? How often should? Okay, we talked about that. Okay, what happens if students' BICs don't improve? Okay, that's from Elizabeth. And if it doesn't improve, it will improve. It has to improve just over time. If it doesn't, and then maybe there's something going on at home, or maybe there's something going on in your classroom, because if you're having the child speak with another child, especially another child who is not who they must speak English with. Now, if they're very introverted and so forth, then they will have to be speaking to you. And if they are speaking to you because they're too introverted to talk to the other student, they will still improve, because the more you use English, the better your English will be. It's all about the amount of time. If you're talking English only 10 minutes a day, you're not going to make as much progress as if you're speaking English 2 hours a day, speaking English 6 hours a day in conversation with someone else. I think some of the reasons why English proficiency isn't so good in English, in Laredo for some students, is that it's too easy to go back into their native language, which would be Spanish for the recent arrivals, and they spend very little time. And when they watch television, they watch television in Spanish as opposed to watching television in English. But more importantly, they do not associate with people who prefer to speak English, and so they very rarely speak English at all. So they're not going to improve. But if you just put in the time, you're going to make improvement, and so will the student. And so that will be your strategy to find out how to give the student more opportunities to speak English. And your job as the ESL teacher is not to hold them back by speaking to them in Spanish or letting them speak to you in Spanish, but to make sure they're speaking to you in English. Assume they are Arabic speakers and you don't speak their language, and they don't speak Spanish, and so you must use English with them. Okay, why is it that the teacher should sometimes assess their language in their native language? Why is it that teacher should sometimes the language proficiency? I'm not sure if the language proficiency as much as the academic level of their language. Their vocabulary would be important, the uses, the reading, and so forth. That's not proficiency, that's use, and for the various uses of the native language, I think that's much more important, because how can you really assess the Arabic speaking student in their native language if you don't know it, and so you have to informally sort of get an idea of what they can do. And so you look like things that are not the language itself, but things they do with their language. In that sense. Okay, in that case. Anaisa, when a student is a newcomer, how long will it take for the BICS to happen in L2? They have statistics on that somewhere. I'm not sure. I don't want to say right now what those are, but generally within 2 years, they've improved pretty well. And I think that for the CALP, I think it's like 5 years, something like that. So I think the BICS is somewhere around 2 years, and the CALP around 3 years. I think that's the rule of thumb. Okay, what if the students never bring back the home language surveys? You go do a home visit or arrange for a home visit, maybe. How would the parent even be able to answer the home language survey if sent home? Because they don't speak the language. Now they might be bilingual already because they've attended university. They've learned the language, but their children have never learned the language. I've seen Filipino children come to the United States. Their parents are teachers teaching in LISD, UISD, and math or science teachers, and they bring their children after a few years, and their children start school and they just speak no English at all. And so they would fill out the survey, sure, because they can handle it, because they're professional. They have a professional job where they speak English. But a lot of immigrants, like refugees, for instance, like from Syria, if they were here, the parents probably wouldn't speak very much English either. Maybe one parent would. So you're going to have to do a lot of it on your own. Just try to find out from the child, from the parent, the best way you can. You might have to find an interpreter. Okay, Anna, in what type of setting is best to assess students' communication skills? Your interaction with them as the teacher and the student, that helps. They might be a little nervous with you, but generally not. They generally like their teacher better than they like their classmates. And they're all very comfortable because you've built up a relationship with your students. Keep the pressure off of them. Don't make them feel apprehensive or anxious about any anxiety about talking with you. You try to put them at ease that it's going to be okay. Okay, besides home visits, how can teachers become more familiar with the cultural norms of different CLD students? You can read. You can go to Wikipedia. You can go to cultural websites that would explain culture. You can put any country and then you can put culture. And you can get all kinds of materials. I'm sure there's books and there's studies and so forth. And if you want to find out about their childhood, you can do an age range, typical kid or something like that. Well, I'm happy there's no more snow to shovel out of the driveway, off of the sidewalks. I think it's up to about 30 degrees by now. The sun is out. The ice is going to melt. I can go back home, get my book, run a few errands, and hopefully this afternoon I will have your next anticipation guide ready. If you have any questions about anything, please give me a call. Send me a draft of your assignments. Again, the lesson plan is due on Saturday. The video is due on Sunday. I've learned that you guys need a little time for these things, and if I give you this weekend time, you do better. You don't have to wait until then. You can turn them both in today. I'll be happy if you do that. No problem at all. It's not me that's ruining your weekend, okay? You guys can get organized and get it done before the weekend. And I should be able to give you some feedback and response a lot quicker now that I'm not driving, 600 miles a day, that type of thing, and packing and unpacking so much. So I look forward to getting your drafts and giving you feedback. If you have any other questions, you need some clarification on something, please give me a call on my phone.